Please start.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, good evening, and namaskar, bonsoir, and hola to all the learners from across the globe today. I'm Dr. Anju Sabharwal, who will be leading you through this session today on becoming a certified English language expert. Over the next 3 days, we will be embarking on a journey to understand how to improve our English skills. It will be a journey of learning, unlearning, and relearning to become better at our English language skills. Or rather, some of us may be revising some of our skills. As my senior from years ago, Mr. G.C. Rao, always used to say, revision always helps us to stay in touch with our abilities and regain our forte in the skills. But before I begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate the very platform for today's knowledge sharing session, the International Internship University. IIU, as it is popularly known, is a leading virtual education system and global brand confederation, which is the most valuable and trusted worldwide and is well reputed in delivering innovative programs. Globally, it is a trusted name for quality training programs and is committed to providing better and virtual education to all young learners of the globe. IIU is metamorphosing the conventional education system by cutting down the additional costs and providing access to more than 1,000+ courses and internships to e-learners across the globe, with the help of its pool of its 1,000+ global educators. In short, in a short span of time, IIU has spread its wings in 195 countries and 6 continents under the strong and able leadership of its visionary founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit Sir. I, Dr. Anju Sabharwal, am thankful to the team IIU and the founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit Sir, for giving me this opportunity to conduct these knowledge sharing sessions for learners from across the globe. Thank you, sir. So let's move on. Today, the flow of the session, we would be looking at defining what a language is, what are the skills in a language, and then these skills can be divided into receptive and productive skills. We'll move on to strategies to improve listening and speaking skills. And then eventually I will share with you a list of TV series to improve upon your listening and speaking skills. So what is a language? As per the Oxford Dictionary, language may be defined as the principal method of human communication consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way and conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture, as well as a system of communication used by a particular country or community. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that it is a medium of interaction between people using different words in a very structured way. A language is always a testament of structure, and it is a conventional way of conveying information. It could be through spoken form of the language, or through a written form, or even through other varied forms which have come up in present day through digital media and other gestures or emoticons, which are the latest advent. And it's a system of communication which is used particularly within a particular community or a particular country. For example, I am from India. So if I look at the example of India, in India, we have so many different languages. And each language has a different kind of set of words or symbols that we use to communicate ideas. Moving on. So what can we say language is? It is a medium of expression to ease communication. It becomes a vehicle to establish collaboration. Now, what do I mean by collaboration? Exchange of ideas between individuals, between organizations, between countries for that matter. A form of transmission for relaying information to the concerned individual or group. Here I'm talking about in a more professional scenario where the leader at the top needs to convey certain information to their team or to the staff in general. And it's not just a written form of expression that language constitutes. Like I said earlier, it constitutes a form of spoken as well as gestures that may be used. So for today, we're just going to try and explore the traditional meaning of language, that is using the 4 skills which we use to convey ideas, our thoughts, opinions, and perspectives. So essentially, it covers the 4 skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. As you can see that since we're talking about English, we will cater to these 4 skills in the English language. Now, when I talk about skills in language, every language, be it English, be it Hindi, be it French, be it Japanese, Mexican, Spanish, every language has these 4 areas where we need to work and improve upon. And out of these, we can categorize these 4 skills into 2 different categories, which is receptive skills and productive skills. Now, what do I mean by receptive skills? Receptive skills are essentially skills where you are at the receiving end, okay? You're just taking in information and trying to process it to be used for further use. For example, reading and listening in any language are combined receptive skills. That means while we are reading, we're taking in information conveyed by the text form. It may be a newspaper article, it may be a novel, it may be a poem, it may be an anecdote, anything of that sort. Or when we are listening, we are processing the information which is being conveyed to us by the other individual. It could be our friend, it could be our boss, it could be our colleague. And that's why while reading a text, we usually undergo the process of analyzing the language. That means analyzing the words or vocabulary that is being used. How is the author trying to convey a meaning to us through those words, and what is the context of those words? Similarly, when we are in a scenario where we are the listeners, we're trying to analyze how is a particular word being pronounced by the speaker, and what is the speaker trying to convey to us through the words that they use. So these are the 2 essential receptive skills. Moving on, we have productive skills. Now, when I talk about productive skills, it means that we are able to analyze the information that we've gathered and produce something of our own. For example, we are able to, let's say I've been listening to my boss convey some meaning, some instruction that he wants vis-a-vis maybe a presentation that I made. So I am analyzing what are the words that he's using and how do I make it into a productive activity when I work on the PPT to convey or, take in the inputs that he has conveyed to make it a better presentation, right? It's likewise when we are reading something, we try and assess what are the words, what is the meaning, and how do we want to convey it in other format. Because often we read things, let's say, for example, you read a story and then because it's so touching and it has, reached some kind of an emotional level and you're able to connect with it, and you feel like writing a poem. So you are processing your thoughts that you have read and using those thoughts to write out that form of poetry, or maybe write another story, or maybe write a small anecdote that which is brought to your mind after you've read a piece of literature. So in that sense, writing and speaking become productive skills. That's because when we are trying to write a text, we're trying to communicate our own thoughts, our feelings, emotions in a written format. It could be in the form of an article, it could be in the form of a story that we write, or any other particular thing. Similarly, when we're speaking, we're expressing our perspectives through oral communications. So that means, what do I mean by oral communication? When we speak, we try to have a different kind of an intonation. What do I mean by intonation? I mean the modulation in our voice. For example, I'm happy with something that, I've heard. So I would have a probably more excited, animated reaction. For example, someone tells me that, they've been able to get their dream job. So probably my reaction to that, when I compliment or congratulate that person, it would be, wow, awesome. So finally you got it. So that is the kind of communication that we use with our voices to make our words seem more effective, right? So for today, what I've done, I've chosen speaking and listening as two skills which we would be looking at to understand how these complement each other and help us to improve our skills in these two areas. So why am I looking at speaking and listening together? Now, it's always, like I've said, that learning a language is a combination of receptive and productive skills. So it could be reading and writing together, as in the case of maybe a response that you need to give to, maybe you've received an email, or you're preparing a content for an advertisement for your organization. So there is a certain kind of, reading content that you want to talk about. Similarly, it could be listening and writing, for that matter. We could be listening to, for example, if I'm a reporter or a journalist, and let's say there has been a massive train accident, for example, a few days back, there was a massive train accident. Now, the person who was reporting on that or writing an article or a newspaper report for it, he would have essentially listened, or she would have essentially listened to the passers-by or people who were on the scene, or other people who were there to help out to construct their own newspaper report and article. Similarly, listening and speaking together are very essential, because in a day-to-day conversation between friends, parents, or maybe in a professional scenario, they act as cogs of the same machine. Like in a bicycle, you have two different wheels which help the bicycle to move forward. Similarly, listening and speaking have to work together in order to create a meaningful and fruitful conversation. We cannot have, two people communicating and not paying attention to what the other is saying. And if you look at that, sometimes it happens, especially in elderly people, because of maybe hearing disability which develops over time, especially on a telephone, they're unable to understand what the other person is saying, and they go on their own stand. So that is communication, but it is not a connected communication. And eventually there is no proper communication that takes place in a conversation. Here I would, of course, like to take this up. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Excuse me for that. Mostly what happens generally with individuals, especially, at least I can speak more so in the Indian context, we usually are, ready with, if someone wants to share something, we aren't actively listening. We aren't trying to understand what the person is saying. We're ready to jump in with advice. Oh my God, oh, this happened, you should do this. We're not even hearing the entire story. Or at times we go into our own, experience, similar experience. So it becomes a disjointed and ineffective communication. So it is very essential that, when we are in a conversation, we as listeners pay attention to what is being spoken, and as a speaker, we are very clear in what we want to convey to the listener. So let's move on and look at some effective and simple strategies to work upon both these skills together. Okay, there can be multiple strategies. So I have just picked up a few simple strategies, which if we try and employ, it will definitely take our skills to the next level. So there is a combination of what I like to call as top-down and bottom-up strategies. Now, when I say top-down strategies, I'm talking about top-down as from looking at the larger picture. Okay, so we're not necessarily looking at every single word. We are like maybe an eagle which flies high above the sky and having an overall view of the entire conversation or entire information that is being shared. So we are looking for the entire spectrum of the information and looking at the bigger picture, or maybe listening to the bigger picture. What is the main idea that the person wants to convey? And we don't necessarily have to pay attention to every single word. Okay, because when there can be words, see, although I'm also a language expert, but we don't use all the words that we are aware of in our daily conversations or our daily, use of the language. So some words become even a grappling thing for the speaker as well, or the listener as well. So it is not important that we listen or understand every single word, but we do listen for what is the information that the person wants to convey through these words. Okay, so the first thing that you actually need to do when you are a listener is not try and pay attention to every spoken word, but try and understand what is the overall idea that the person is talking about. Okay, so top down essentially means skills which help us to get the bigger picture of any conversation. Now, there can be three such ways through which we can improve our, conversations. The first one being, I'll just list out the three ways that we can do it and then give you a little bit more input into it. So it's using existing knowledge, listening for keywords, and using a context to guess. Now, when I talk about using existing knowledge, so as a listener, before we even go into actually assessing what the person is talking about, from the very first few words that are spoken, we question ourselves as to what do I already know about this kind of a situation. So for example, let me take the example of a train station, a conversation at a train station. Now, from my knowledge of a conversation at train station, we will be able to understand that, okay, maybe it's talking about train timings. The conversation is going to talk about when is a particular train going to come, or maybe it's about where can we procure tickets or buy tickets, or like in a larger platform or a larger station, you have multiple platforms where trains come in. So where exactly is this train going to end up? So things like this. So that is using our existing knowledge from what we know about the situation and keeping it in our minds while we listen. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is listening for keywords. What do I mean by keywords? Those words which play an important role in the conversation. For example, if I have to again take the example of a conversation at a train station. So can I identify words which will help me understand the scenario a little bit better? For example, we may hear words like how much is a ticket to, maybe if I have to give an Indian scenario, from Delhi to Mumbai, right? Or what would be, the cost of a single journey, a one-way journey, either way, or what platform is the train going to arrive on? So the words there, how much, a single journey, platform become the keywords which help us understand at a greater depth what the conversation is going to be about, right? So these words will help us maybe, get an overall sense of where the conversation is going, and maybe, it will help the person also give the correct information, right? Because we know the person is probably going to ask me, where can I procure a ticket and which platform, so I can give the required information in a very crisp and clear manner, so there's no confusion. Now, using context to guess. When I talk about context, I mean whatever the context is. It could be in a video, it could be an image. Like in a video, we could try and imagine what is the setting as to where is this scene happening, who are the different characters, who are they, where they are, and what they might be talking about, or also what might be happening next. Okay, so for example, I've got a picture here for you, and if you look at the picture, can you can very easily understand. So this becomes a context of what the conversation would be if I were to continue with a conversation or continue watching this video. I've just taken this image from a series based on hospitals. So you can see from the image that, it is a hospital. Maybe the two people in the white coats are doctors, and maybe they're talking about patients, or maybe they're talking about an action that needs to be taken up, a follow-up action. You can see in the background that there are technicians, there are machines, there are some beds. So you have a general idea of, what is going to happen next in the conversation. So you could also predict. Prediction is a good way of being able to clearly identify what kind of information would the person want to know. So maybe you could, if there is a conversation on this kind of a scenario, you could probably hearing words like an operation theater, maybe a surgery, maybe a patient. It could talk about diagnosis, a checkup, a follow-up visit. So predicting what may come up helps us be more tuned, because then we are paying more attention. Now, I always talk about, listening, there being a slight difference between listening and hearing. Now, I would just like to take it up here also, because it becomes a very important thing to understand the slight difference. It seems that it is similar because we are taking in spoken information which we're trying to process. The basic difference between hearing and listening is that when we hear things, we just let verbal noises or verbal communication flow into our mind or through our ears. But when we are listening, we are paying attention to the words that are being used to communicate, right? So these are a few top-down strategies, which if we keep in mind, will definitely take our listening and speaking to a higher level, and it will make our conversations more fruitful, more concise, and more clear. There will be a greater clarity when we communicate, because we are already prepared with a thought process. We already have certain words that we know could come up because we are in a certain place. Similarly, you could be at a movie hall, so you would be aware, okay, a person could come up to you and ask you, where can I procure tickets, or when is the next show, and things like that. So it helps us to be more concise in how we want to communicate with people, and the communication becomes very clear and easy to understand. Now, another set of strategies, like I call them, or are usually called, are bottom-up listening strategies. Now, what do I mean by bottom-up? It means taking a closer look. If I spoke about top doing being a bird's eye view, looking at the general picture, A bottom up is a worm's eye view. That means focusing on details. Now, again, I'm bringing you to two different things that we need to do, and they will essentially help us both in listening and speaking, because it's something that works together. Now, this is very helpful when you're watching a video where you see a new character, you see a plot, you see a new idea, you see a new person being introduced, you see certain numbers being introduced. Okay, so what are those bottom up listening strategies which help us, or rather listening and speaking strategies will help us or go a long way in making this a better experience for us, right? There are three ways again, which I would like to bring up. I've chosen the simplest things that we can do so that it just elevates our skills easily and efficiently. Okay, there can be many ways, but I just thought to hone on three skills which would give you a general idea, and three skills which we need to employ to get details. So the first one is to notice stress words. Now, in English, when we speak English, we do not pronounce every word equally. We stress out nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs, again, depending on what is the situation. For example, if I have to take this sentence, we don't say caffeine was an amazing aid to the rise of capitalism. If someone speaks or says this sentence out, it clearly makes it sound very strange, because that's not how a spoken language is. So when we actually speak this, or how we are actually supposed to speak this, we would probably say caffeine was an amazing aid to the rise of capitalism. So we're stressing on the three bits which I have underlined and put in red for you. So caffeine would be probably a point of stress, because we want to say that this is important, and we want to highlight the importance of it being an amazing aid. That's why wasn't would probably be said like that. And again, it being an amazing aid to what? Rise of capitalism. So there I've highlighted three places or three things that when we are speaking or in a conversation or, talking, we would probably highlight, right? So whenever you're listening, pay attention to where the stress is being put. It is very important, because it will immediately give you that these are the important things in whatever the person said. Again, earlier we were looking for what the person is talking about. Now we are paying more attention to what he's or she is talking about, right? Of course, the next one is, just a minute. The next one is intonation. Okay, now intonation in English does not have any rules. What I mean by intonation is how we modulate, how do we speak words to have that effect. Because spoken language, why is a spoken piece of information probably more interesting than a reading a piece of text? Because in spoken language, we are able to add emotions to what we're talking about, whereas in a written piece of text, we are not able to exemplify or put in the exact emotion. So there are not actually any rules, but there are certain patterns that we use for intonation in the regular use of English. So for example, in open questions, there is usually a rising tone. What I mean by open questions, when I'm asking someone a question which can be answered in a yes-no scenario. For example, do you like it? So you can, it's a rising tone, right? Do you like it? That's why I've got an upward red arrow at the end of it. Do you live here? So I'm stressing on here. I'm stressing on like it, so that I want to know the exact reply to those things. Do you often go jogging? Again, in that case, I'm concerned about whether the person actually goes jogging on a regular basis or not. Okay, so this is how intonation works in open-ended questions. You can also have two clause sentences. That means there are two clauses in a sentence. So the first one would be a rising intonation, and the second clause would be a falling intonation. Yeah. So for example, I've again got some examples for you. If I ate less, I wouldn't be so fat. So when you hear me, you can understand that I'm stressing on the word less, because eating less is important for me not to be so fat. So the second clause is in a lower tone, right? If I had a lot of money, I would buy a house. Okay, again, what am I stressing on? That the importance of having money for me to procure a house. Likewise, before going to work, I have breakfast. Okay, so again, highlighting that I'm stressing on the fact, the importance of before leaving for work, what do I do? Okay, so these are two clause sentences where the first clause is usually in a higher intonation than the second clause. Second part, so when you are listening to someone in a conversation, you can pay attention. Of course, I'm not expecting you to, go mentally and say, oh my God, there are two clauses, so I need to pay attention. It isn't like that. With regular use, it becomes an automatic process. But yes, when you are listening, you could listen for the intonation as well to help you. Second, the third thing is list. Now, each time it takes a rising tone depending on number of objects or things in a list. But usually the last one takes a falling tone. For example, I like coffee, tea, and water. Okay, so coffee being the first one, it's in a rising intonation. Tea being the second one, it's again in a rising intonation, or you modulate your voice at a higher level. But water, because it is coming to an end, it is slightly subdued. Giving another example, he's skilled at English, math, and humanities. So how a person speaks gives us information as to what exactly do we need to pay attention to. Like I said, there is a difference between hearing things and listening to things. When we're listening, we're paying more attention to it. So whenever we listen to either people or online or digitally, we listen to podcasts, watch videos, we should listen for these different, intonation patterns. The more attentive we become in listening, or we pay more attention, our listening skills slowly improve better. So it's not some rocket science that we really need to do. We just need to be a little mindful of how much attention are we paying to the words that are being said and the manner in which they are being said. Okay, moving on. Now, the third thing that happens in spoken language, which helps a lot with listening, is chunks. Now, what do I mean by chunks? When I say chunks, it means, a chunk usually is a bigger piece of anything. A chunk of wood, a chunk of, stone. So it's a bigger piece of information or a bigger piece of text out of the entire text. For instance, in a sentence, it would be maybe 3 or 4 words which are linked together. Now, you would say, but they are separate words, right? But the way when we pronounce them and when we say them, that's how we're meant to say them. They are supposed to appear as one piece or one word. Okay, that comes with the fluency that we develop over the years. Okay, so when we listen to people, we should pay attention as to where a person kind of uses these chunk words. Okay, for example, now I can say the first question, did you like it, right, as that. But when I am speaking now, because I'm just talking about this question in isolation, I'm spelling out each word. But when I'm talking in a sentence, it would probably come as, did you like it? Okay, so it comes together as a word. And when you pick up a dictionary, you usually see these kind of phonemic expressions given to help you with the stresses and pronunciation. Okay, so how can you practice this, noticing these chunks? It can only be done through audio clips or listening to a podcast, or when you are online. Most of us spend a lot of time being on our phones because we have made our phones working laptops. In fact, if I have to respond to a mail at times, I can do it from my phone as well, because I've synced my Gmail account to my phone. And because I'm traveling and I don't have my laptop, it allows me. So there are a lot of things that we use our phones for in the present day, thanks to the spread of technology. So when you are listening to an audio or at a video, there are, of course, options for subtitles. So it would help you understand when you listen what is being said as a chunk. So you can listen to it, repeat it, again, make use of subtitles to identify the chunk and try saying it, because it is only through practice that we can enable ourselves to improve our skills. I always believe that we are all, in fact, for me also, English is a second language, because at home I use my native mother tongue, which is Hindi. So to be able to be adept at any other language except my mother tongue, I need to keep using it and practicing it. Okay, now I can share with you a very good learning tool which is available online by the name of Woodpecker Learning, which has videos. You can find audio clips, and you also have subtitles, you also have transcripts, and you can also have the benefit of using this in a loop. You can repeat the sentence. A loop means it keeps repeating itself again and again. Okay, so we can make use of this, and using such things will help us definitely become better listeners as well as better speakers of the language. So let's just look at some sentences which I picked up. It is from a conversation about two people talking about a person setting up a food joint or a cafe. How did you end up opening a food spots? So you can pick up that phrase together as did you end up, right? So you can break it down to did you end up. But when we hear it, because we are not paying attention, or we are not aware of how a language is in a spoken term, we sometimes get confused. And this usually happens when we are listening. Maybe when I speak, I probably make an effort to make myself clearly audible, and so that all of you learners can understand what is happening. I'm speaking a little slowly, but if you listen to the three main English-speaking nations actually use English, that is the US, the British, and the Australian, they have a very fluent and a very quick way of speaking the language. So sometimes we get confused as to what they said, and the most difficult being the Australian accent. Now, coming next, I would like to share with you a couple of, TV series, because the best way you can improve your English speaking and listening together is by watching series. And there is a plethora of things that you can watch online, thanks again to television now moving into a virtual space or being run through the internet. Gone are the days, I think 70% of the population has their TV sets running on the internet, because they already have a internet set up at home, and they don't need those wires dangling from all over, which are being, through other mediums, right? So because of this, there is a lot of exposure that we get, and because of, I think, COVID transforming how we looked at entertainment, especially as well, besides other things which it transformed for us. Entertainment has become online also. So we have a lot of series which come in, and people can, watch these series. For example, I love cooking, so I always make it a point to watch the Australian MasterChef series, although there is an Indian MasterChef counterpart as well. But I somehow enjoy the Australian MasterChef series because it brings a lot of, different foods, although I don't cook any of them at home, and I'm always chided that why the hell are you watching if you can't cook those things. But I like watching that series. So those series become an ideal practicing, listening skills. And the biggest challenge is finding the ones you like. Now, having said that, it is very important that we have a spectrum of series that we like. For example, like I just said, I enjoy the MasterChef, Australian MasterChef series. But yes, I also make it a point to maybe, watch a few documentaries or watch some other kind of TV series which are not my liking, but because I am exposed to a different set of words, different set of communication tools there. I'm just going to share with you a few series, a few kind of things which I feel you should make a point. It's like just reading the newspaper. When we guide our children or our students, we tell them you should try and read different kind of newspaper articles, reports. Likewise, when you are trying to hone your skills in English listening and speaking, it becomes very, very imperative or important that you expose yourself to different scenarios, right? And why do we try to do this? So that we are exposed to different accents, contexts, and genres. The first one is action-packed series. So action-packed series usually have a lot of action, a lot of emotion, a lot of drama. You would expect a lot of, violence also. So there are different, what do you say, words that are used to express action. And two very interesting series which I like are Killing Eve, which is a British spy thriller which has a lot of suspense, drama, and unexpected tales. And another one is His Dark Materials, which is a fantasy drama based on books by the author Philip Pullman. So action exposes us to different kinds of words, right? There's a different set of vocabulary that you would see in those scenarios. You would also get exposed to different kinds of settings, different kinds of, what should I say, characters, how they are dressed, how they look, how the, the writer has tried to portray a certain character. Coming next to sitcoms. Sitcom is a short form for situational comedies, which in fact mean that it is a comedy based on a certain circumstance. So it is, why is it ideal? Because it will have cultural references. It will also expose us to a sense of humor and how natural conversations take place. Now, again, I have chosen an American, a British sitcom, which is Ted Lasso. It is talking about an American trying to train a British team. Now, like I said, there are certain variances in British English and American English. For example, if I have to give you a simple example, in British English, we have something called a timetable, okay? A train timetable or a class timetable. But an American would refer to the same thing as a schedule. Okay, so these differences in words in this sitcom creates confusion and creates humor and creates that clash of ideas between the British and the American coach. Again, there's another one which is Mythic Quest. It is again talking about staff of a company which is creating a multiplayer video game which can be played across the world. Again, because of where it has been created, it's going to create differences in understanding and in opinion, right? Moving on, the last one I've chosen is a very old sitcom. I think some of us might recollect. It was Mind Your Language. It was a British English teacher working with multilingual students from around the globe. So he had students from China, he had students from France, he had students from Italy, India, Pakistan, the different religions, different backgrounds. As in, one was a mafia don. So for him, it was something else. And there used to be a little, interaction always they would have, because they wouldn't understand what the teacher is trying to explain to them. So this would definitely open up your thought processes to vocabulary, new situations, and of course, humor being an essential part of any language. Moving on, of course, news is a very important and pertinent thing that we should watch in English, because it gives us a more professional approach to the skills, right? When you see the news readers, they are in a very professional approach. They will not use wrong words or use slang words, which are okay to be spoken, but we cannot use them in a written and format. So Good Morning Britain, again, is a light-hearted look at daily news. If you like, something, you're more of a person who likes investigations or more into thrillers, maybe Panorama would talk about investigative journalism. But yes, it is not too sensational, because again, it being a news program, they do not try to heighten it or over dramatize it by elements of drama. Of course, a wonderful place would be drama series. Now, when I say drama series, these are talking about operas or continuous, serials which continue as soap, soap theater. Again, it becomes a way of how conversations take place, because they are more in a relaxed environment. It becomes a way to understand natural communication, understand colorful language, and of course slang as well. But ideally, we do not use slang words in a formal setting. Now, any language, the moment you put pen to paper, it becomes a formal setting. So I'm not talking about a professionally formal setting. I'm also talking about how language changes its root. So in the form of written language, use of slangs is looked down upon, right? So there is a drama which I sometimes watch, Little Fires Everywhere. It's talking about a perfect family which gets a makeover or faces a transformation with the entry of a mother, energetic or enigmatic mother and child, and how it changes the entire scenario. Of course, another drama series which I do like is talking about how the role of women has transformed over centuries. Again, I wouldn't like to classify as particular thing, but it talks about how the role of women as caretakers, as people who held a family together, transforms over the years into the future and creates a drama. Okay, moving on to, of course, documentaries. Documentaries are a great way of getting exposed to the technical vocabulary related to so many different things. You have documentaries on child welfare, you have documentaries on animal welfare, you have documentaries like the National Geographic, which talks about different, things. So documentary exposes you to a wide variety of situations where you can understand, learn. See, our whole objective of going through these series is to explore language and improve upon language. There is always room for improvement. Even though I feel that I'm at a very proficient level of English language communication, I still feel that every time I pen down something, there is room for improvement, because I can look at things which are happening and understand how these words create an impact. So 2 documentaries which I do understand and like. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I'll just sort this out. There's some issue. Just a minute. I'm unable to share my screen. So I'll just... So if I can continue with my presentation. Just give me a minute. So actually, I can probably wrap it up. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about, which would help us improve our speaking and listening skills, was exposure to chat shows, right? Now, of late, we have a lot of chat shows coming up because there are so many diversified platforms. These chat shows help us understand not just the spoken or visual communication, but also helps us understand how to carry ourselves as individuals when we are speaking on a platform. So there is a variety of chat shows like the Ellen Show, which I feel is a fabulous exposure to the kind of topics or the kind of celebrities which come and discuss things on her chat show. So in all, I've just tried to put together skills which will help you all to improve your listening and speaking by just these little small things. And it does not make it too much and does not overwhelm, because we are going through these activities in our daily routines. It's not something that we're doing out of sync or out of line, right? With this, I come to the end of my session today. I will be continuing with my sessions and dwelling upon the skills of reading and writing in my sessions tomorrow and day after, that is the 10th and 11th of June. So we will be meeting again at the same time at 8 o'clock in the evening with some more sessions on skills which would help us elevate both our reading and writing skills. I hope this session has been quite useful for all of us. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank once again the platform IIU, and more specifically its visionary founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit sir, for allowing me to use this platform for this knowledge sharing session, which I am sure would have helped many of my learners today. And I'm looking forward to having a more insightful and helpful sessions over the next 2 days. At the same time, everyone. So till tomorrow, good night. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for being on this platform tonight. And I hope to see all of you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you.